purpose of this lesson is to learn about rudimentary graphics, threading, and multi-threading. C# has advanced graphics capabilities that can range from small projects to large games. It is a member of the system.drawing class, so there is a using statement that's automatically generated at the top of your code. Shapes are the simplest graphics. However, you must instantiate the pen object anytime that you want to create a new object. Also, each shape is going to have a parameter list that is defined. Most of the time it's going to be things like the XY coordinates for the top left corner of the graphic, the color of the graphic, and also its size. Single threading is one processor can only actually perform one task at a given time. So if I try to do two things at the same time, the processor actually can't handle it. So what happens is the first task has to finish running before the second task is allowed to start running. And then while that second task is running, then another one can't run. What happens is if I start a task, I can't even stop the task. I can't even interrupt it because interrupting it would require the processor to be able to handle that interrupt. This is not ideal for today's programming environments. Newer programs are going to use what's called multi-threading, and .NET has multi-threading capabilities built into it that will allow the processor to handle multiple tasks simultaneously. Now when I say that, the processor still only handles one task at a time, but tasks are broken down into smaller chunks called threads, and then the processor takes turn performing tasks on those threads. So if I have three separate threads, it'll perform a small part of thread 1, a small part of thread 2, a small part of thread 3, and then it goes back and goes through 1, 2, and 3 again. Now what happens is us as the user, we perceive this as the tasks all running at the same time. But in reality, a small part of each task is running at any given point in time. Some of the commands that we can use for threads are going to be things like we can set a priority for it. We can state that they're going to be above normal or below normal priority or normal. And what this does is we may have a task that has to have higher processor time than another task, and we can set a higher priority for that particular task. We can start threads. We can cause them to sleep, which sleep just simply waits a certain number of seconds before it'll do the next part. Then we also have suspend, which is I want to indefinitely pause a particular task, and then we can resume it. Or the other option is if I want to flat out abort it, we can do a reset abort. I'm going to use graphics to show to you how threading works. So before we get to the threading portion, I have to teach you how to do graphics. Now a graphic is just simply writing something on the screen, and we have different types of shapes that we can play with, and then shapes are just simply going to be either an ellipse or some sort of polygon that we provide an outline to it, a pen, and we also can do a fill. So we can end up with things like our rectangles and squares and circles and so forth. So what I want to do is I want to generate some circles on the screen. And so what I'm going to do to generate the circles, I'm going to add some buttons. So I have a button for our green circles and a button for our red circles. Okay, so I called it button 1. I want to undo that. Okay, so I'm going to rename this real quick. This is going to be green. And then I'm going to call it CMD green. That's our command button. And then I have another button here which is going to be CMD red for some red circles. And we're going to put the text here as being red. Okay, so I just simply have a green button and a red button, and what I want it to do is when I click on the green button, I want it to put a green circle on the screen. And when I click on the red button, I want to put another circle, but it's going to be red on the screen. Alright, so I'm going to create the default click events for these by simply double-clicking on them. And then now I have my click events. Alright, so the circles. To make a circle, there are actually some different attributes that I have to define for each one. I have to specify what color the brush is, meaning what color is the outline for it. I need to specify its X and Y coordinates. I need to specify its width and its height in pixels. And then after I do that, then I have to draw it. So it's going to be 6 individual steps that, yes, we could combine them together, but I'm going to show them to you separately to make it a little bit more explanatory as to how it works. Alright, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to use our pen. Excuse me, so I'm going to type pen, and you'll notice that I already have it. It's a member of system.drawing, so it's already here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a red color shape. So I'm going to call it shape red color. And then what this is going to be is I want it to be a new pen. And we talked about this before, that if I make an object, I have to use this constructor. Now in this case, the constructor for a new pen object is I have to specify its brush. And then if you go down through the list here, you'll see we have color, we have brush, and then we have the float width, and then we have our pen color and float width. So the one we're going to play with here is this brush. Alright, so we're going to play with brushes, dot, red. This is the color that we can play with. And then what size do we want to make it? So I'm going to make it 5 pixels in size. Alright, so what I did is I just simply made a new shape, red color, that is red, that has a 5 pixel brush. Okay, so essentially what I'm doing is I'm creating the pen, or creating the object that can draw whatever shape I want. Alright, so I need some things to know the X and Y coordinates for it. So I'm going to make some variables to hold these. I have shape red, and then this is X, and I'm going to put this at 50 pixels. So this is 50 pixels from the top left. Then I'm going to make another one which is shape red, and then Y, and we'll put this at 80 pixels. I need to know how wide and how tall the shape is, and this is going to be an ellipse, but I want to make it a circle, so that means the width and the height are going to be the same. So shape red width, and this is going to be 20 pixels in size, and then I want shape red height, and this is going to be 20 pixels in size. So all I have done so far is just simply declared what a circle would look like, but I haven't actually drawn one yet. Alright, so I have a pen. The pen width is 5 pixels, it's red. We have a shape at 50 pixels across, 80 pixels down, that is 20 pixels wide and 20 pixels tall, but we haven't actually drawn it yet. So I actually have to draw it out on the form. The form is where we're actually going to draw the shape, and if you remember back to a prior lesson, we talked about being able to reference the form by the this reference. So I'm going to use the this reference, and if I do this dot, I actually have the ability to create graphics, and that's an option for creating things on the form itself. And what kind of graphic do I want? Well, I want to draw an ellipse. And then if I open the parentheses here, you'll see we have some options. Alright, so I want to pen something, and you'll see we have the pen, and you'll see that it also requires some sort of rectangle shape. So what it's going to do is it's going to take a rectangular area and draw this particular shape in. So even though I'm drawing an ellipse, we still need to specify a rectangular area for it. Okay, so the pen is going to be shape red color, and then comma, and then I need to define a new rectangular area. So I'm going to do a new rectangle, and then specify some parameters for it. So we have to specify the X and Y coordinates, and then the width and the height. Alright, so I'm going to do shape red X, shape red Y. Then we have shape red width and shape red height. Alright, and we have one more parenthesis. Alright, so now what we've done is we've defined that this is a new pen, so this is how wide it is, this is the color it is. Here is the coordinates of the object itself, so the top left corner of the circle. What the width and height is both 20, so therefore we get a circle. We are going to draw on this, which is the form, create graphics, and draw an ellipse. The shape red color, this is the type of pen, so we're telling it what kind of pen to use. And then from there, we draw the rectangular area. So if I start this, and I click the green button, we get a red circle. So I have it backwards. I need to fix the code here. That was supposed to be the red for the red button. Alright, so let's cut this from here and put this into our red button. Alright, so click red. Now we have a red circle. Alright, now green doesn't do anything because it actually isn't defined yet. So as of yet, we just simply have our red circle. Now just to save from retyping all of this, I'm going to just simply copy this. Paste this here for the green. And then what I want to do is change some of the parameters for it. Okay, so this one's not at 50. We'll set this to 90. We'll set this at 120. Still going to be 20 pixels wide, 20 pixels tall. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make this a green color. So we'll call this green. And this will be brushes.green. So all of these references to red here we just have to change because it's a green circle instead of red. So I'm just simply going through and changing all the references to green. Almost done. Just make sure we didn't miss any of them. Alright, so everything should be green. So now if I run this and I click green, we get a green button. I click red, I get a red button. Okay, so that's the basics for creating a circle on the screen. Alright, so it seems fairly easy. If I click these, it's going to keep redrawing that exact same circle. It's just drawing on top of itself. If I click this one, it just creates a new one there. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to get it to randomly put circles all over the screen. And so I'm going to modify the X and Y coordinates just a little bit so that way we can have a randomized place for where the circles get created. Now I want to create a random number, and to do that I have to use a random number generator. It's already built into C#, so I don't have to recreate anything, but I do have to call it. Alright, now we have a class of objects called random, and when I instantiate it, I'm going to instantiate it just like any other item. So I'm going to say random, and then I'm going to give it a name. So I'm just simply going to call it random with a lowercase r, and this is the one that I can reference. And this is going to equal to a new random object. So use the default constructor for it. Alright, so random is what I'm going to reference it. So now what I want to do is instead of specifying that this is at 90 pixels, I want to specify that it's going to be at some random place between 0 and the width of the form. Okay, so the way that I do this is I'm going to type random, and then in parentheses I'm going to type the coordinate, or the minimum and the maximum coordinates. Okay, so the minimum is going to be 0, and then the maximum is going to be this dot width. Okay, now this, remember, is the reference to the form, so therefore we can reference the form, or the width of the form, by using this reference. Alright, so it's not just random that I need though. I need to generate what's called a next method. So it's random dot, and then we have next. And so it says, hey, generate the next number that's random from this minimum to this maximum. Alright, and then I'm going to do the same thing here for the width. For the height. So what I'm going to say is that I want to make a new random number, and then dot next, so make the next random number from 0 to this dot height. So from anywhere from 0 to the height of the form. Alright, so now if I run this, it should allow me to randomly run and randomly draw a circle on the screen every time I click the green button. Alright, so click start, click green, and we get a random button, a random circle. And you'll notice some of them are drawing behind where I am, but it's just simply making the circle that the top left corner can be anywhere from 0 all the way over to the edge of the screen. So I could end up with a couple that actually are drawn off the screen, and that's actually okay, but we're just simply drawing these. And then when I draw the red one's still only drawn in the same location here. Alright, so I want to do the same thing with our red, so I'm just going to copy this code here, and instead of that we're going to have the random instead of the height. Once again, there we go. Alright, so if I run this, green randomly generates, red randomly generates, and they just get put all over the screen. So the idea here is what I want to do is I want to automate this drawing 100 of each of these types of circles on the screen. So I want 100 green circles randomly placed and 100 of the red circles randomly placed. To automate the process of drawing 100 of these, I'm going to put this inside of a definite loop. And remember, our for loop is the best one for making a definite loop. So I'm going to make a new integer value for k, and I'm going to start that at 0. That's going to be our counter. And while k is less than 100, we're going to keep doing this. And then when we're done, we're going to increment k by 1. Okay, so then we put all of this into curly brackets, so that whole section of code will get run. Alright, so then when we're all done, the next thing I want to do is I want to pop up a message box that says done drawing green circles. So we're going to say message box dot show done drawing green circles. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing down here. I want to put this in a for loop. So for int k equals 0, while k is less than 100, increase k by 1, and put all this in curly brackets. And same thing, we're going to say message box dot show, and then done drawing red circles. That way we know when it's done. Okay, so if I run this, now if I click the green button, we get all these circles that just got drawn, and it says done drawing green circles. Okay, we get all these reds, done drawing red circles. Okay, so what happens though is that they all just drew really fast, and I don't want them all to draw real fast. I want to kind of space out one drawing and then a pause, and then the next one draws, and then a pause, and the next one draws, and then a pause. And I can't do that with this type of loop. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to use threading. And threading is going to allow me to dictate in terms of clock cycles and in terms of seconds how often things should work, how slow it should work, and I can also pause and I can resume drawing things on the screen. Alright, so to start using threading, the first thing that I need to do is up here where I declared my random number, I need to also declare some threads. Okay, now the problem is that I don't have thread available to me. Alright, so what I have to do is I have to come up here in my using statements and add one more. You'll notice we have using system.threading.tasks, but we need using system.threading. Okay, so now if I come down here and if I type thread, now I have the ability to make threads. Alright, and I'm going to make a new thread. Oops, sorry. I'm going to make a new thread, and we're going to call it thgreen and another one called thred, just so we can keep track of which thread we're working with. Okay, so we have thread thgreen, thred, and now we just simply have two threads. Now I haven't done anything with them, we just have some threads that are set aside. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a new method specifically for the thread. Alright, so what I'm going to do is make a public void, which is a method that's not going to return anything, and then we'll call this thread, and green is the one we're working with. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take all of this code from here, and I'm going to move all of this down into my thread statement, or my thread method. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new thread and then start it. Okay, so I've declared that we do have a thread up here, but I need to declare that I want to use it down here. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set thgreen equal to a new thread. And then what do I want the thread to be? Well, the thread is going to be thread green down here. Okay, and then the next thing I want to do is I want to start it. So we're going to take thgreen dot start, and we'll actually start it. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to specify that we want this thing to run, that we want this thread to perform the creation of these, and then it will take care of actually threading it for us. Now, if I do green, it still does the exact same thing. If I do red, it does the exact same thing. But what I can do now is I can throttle a little bit, and I'll show you that in just a second. But I do want to show you something. If red is running, while red is running, I cannot pause, or I cannot run the green. I can't do anything else. Now, it runs really fast, so you can't really see it, but when I click green, green is done through a thread, red is not. If I click green, I can do other things while green is actually drawing the circles. If I click red, because it's not threaded, I cannot do anything until it's done making all of the circles. Now, to slow down my thread a little bit, what I want to do is at the end of my for loop, I'm going to add one line of code. And that one line of code is thread.sleep. Okay, and then how long do I want? You notice this is in terms of milliseconds. All right, so I want it to be 1/10 of a second in between drawing these, so therefore it's going to be 100 milliseconds. And so what we're doing is we're just simply putting a pause in between drawing each circle. So if I click start and I click on green, now it has a little bit of a pause between drawing each circle. It's still going to draw all 100 of them, but what I've done is I forced it to draw these with a little bit of a pause in between them. Red still just draws all the red, but green does not. Alright, so what I want to do is the exact same thing for our red that I've done for the green. So let's come down here to the red. We're going to create a new method for red. Okay, so we're going to make a new public void thread red. Okay, and then I'm going to take all of the code that's here for our red, paste it here. Helps if you spell it right. And then I want to call this, so we're going to make thread, and we're going to set this equal to a new thread. Which thread? Well, thread red is the method that I want to use below. And then we're going to take thread dot start. So we're going to start that thread. Okay, and the same thing I did before, we're going to cause this to sleep a little bit. So we're going to do thread dot sleep 100 milliseconds. And now what I can do is, as long as I don't have any errors, I'm missing a semicolon somewhere. Line 49. Oh, right here. Okay, so what I can do is when I run this, when I run green, green's running, and now what I can do at the exact same time is I can run the reds. And what it will do is, to me, it seems like it's doing both of them at the same time. But in reality, what it's doing is it's drawing a portion of the green ones, then a portion of the red ones, then a portion of the green ones, and a portion of the red ones, and a portion of the green, and a portion of the red. It keeps doing that until it's done. Now, what happens is once it was done with the green, the red was still continuing on. The red would actually have more processor cycles that it could play with because green isn't tying up any processor cycles, and the red would actually speed up just a little bit. But what this is doing for me is it's allowing me to regulate how fast they actually draw on the screen, and also allow both of them to draw at the exact same time. In this lesson, you learned some rudimentary graphics, you learned about threading, and then also learned about multi-threading and how to allow two tasks to run at the same time.